Well, they're doing it right in front of us. Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. What am I talking about? Well, they're building a system of digital tyranny right in front of our eyes. A system of central bank digital currencies, tokenized assets, and digital IDs. This is a system that's indistinguishable in capability and function from the mark of the beast system we read about in the book of Revelation. And we have some updates on tokenized assets and the widespread use of tokenized assets. So first, let's take a look at this right here. This is an article we wrote on the system of digital tyranny they're trying to create. What is a tokenized asset? So this says, the second element of the end times financial system they're planning to roll out is asset tokenization. Remember, the first is central bank digital currencies. The third is digital IDs. Tokenized assets are real-world assets placed on a blockchain. What does that mean? Well, a digital token can be created on the blockchain to represent any physical object, real-world asset, or property. What makes tokenized assets different from other blockchain tokens is they convert the legal ownership rights of those real-world assets into blockchain tokens, which can be bought and sold seamlessly. In other words, instead of your proof of ownership residing at the local courthouse for a land title, or the Department of Motor Vehicles for vehicle title, or a brokerage house, think stock certificates and bonds, proof of ownership will reside on the blockchain. This opens the door to digitizing every asset on Earth. And here are some examples, but guys, it can also be inventory. So products you buy at the store, they'll tokenize everything they possibly can. And this creates the ability to buy or sell any of these items with instant transfer of ownership rights. So guys, this is a system of digital tyranny that we don't want to fall into. There are advantages to businesses of doing this, greater efficiencies for businesses to do this. But in the wrong hands, this becomes a privacy nightmare. It becomes a tyrannical nightmare for the rest of us, normal citizens. So let's take a look at this right here. This is from Watcher.guru. From last month, it says JP Morgan settles first public transaction of tokenized treasuries. So here we have the largest bank, really the largest private bank in the world, largest bank in the United States, engaged in tokenizing the largest bond market in the world. And what is a landmark development for the industry and the bank? JP Morgan has officially settled its public transaction of tokenized treasuries. Indeed, the financial institution went beyond the walled garden of its own blockchain technology in a landmark settlement, according to Fortune. On Wednesday, the bank announced that it had settled the public ledger transaction with the help of crypto companies Chainlink and Ondo Finance. It represents a landmark shift for the $4 trillion asset manager that has long explored the possibilities of the technology. Moreover, it could represent a sign of a greater embrace of blockchain cooperation. And when we go to the end of the story, we find out they're not the only one. It says, JP Morgan is one of many traditional financial firms exploring an entry into the crypto space. Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan confirmed this year that they were set to introduce their very own stablecoin. Indeed, he noted the bank was only waiting on the legislation necessary to make the product offering completely legal in the United States. So here we have JP Morgan, we have Bank of America, and there are others as well. So we had this from Cointelegraph. It says, everything is lining up. Tokenization is having its breakout moment. It says tokenization of real-world assets is evolving from an abstract concept to a practical financial tool as institutional players increasingly test and deploy blockchain-based infrastructure at scale. This past week alone, and again, this is from May as well, saw a flurry of announcements from both traditional financial institutions and blockchain-native firms advancing their real-world asset initiatives. On April 30th, BlackRock filed to create a digital ledger technology shares class for its $150 billion Treasury Trust Fund. It will leverage blockchain technology to maintain a mirror record of share ownership for investors. So here we have BlackRock, we have Bank of America, we have JP Morgan. These are major players in the financial space. It says the DLT shares will trade BlackRock's BLF Treasury Trust Fund, which may only be purchased from BlackRock advisors in the Bank of New York Mellon. On the same day, Libra announced plans to tokenize $500 million in Telegram debt through its new Telegram bond fund. The fund will be available to accredited investors and usable as collateral for on-chain borrowing. This week's biggest headline came from Dubai, where multi-bank group signed a $3 billion real-world asset tokenization deal with United Arab Emirates-based real estate firm MAG and blockchain infrastructure provider Maverick. The deal is touted as the largest real-world asset tokenization initiative to date. Quote, the recent surge isn't arbitrary. It's happening because everything's lining up. Eric Passini, CEO of Hashgraph, told Cointelegraph. Quote, rules are getting clearer in major markets. The technology is stronger, faster, and ready to scale. And big players are actually doing it. BlackRock is tokenizing funds. Citi is exploring digital asset custody. And Franklin Templeton is tokenized money market funds on public blockchains. Again, these are major financial institutions lining up behind asset tokenization. It says Marcin Kazmierzak, a co-founder of Redstone, said the recent announcements demonstrate that tokenization has moved beyond theoretical discussions into practical application by market leaders. He added that the growing adoption by big institutions gives the space more credibility. And when we scroll to the bottom of this article, we get some estimates from him on the size of this market. It says Redstone's Kazmierzak predicted that approximately 30% of the global financial system will be tokenized by the end of this decade. In terms of numbers, STM.co predicted that the world's real-world asset market will be anywhere between $30 and $50 trillion by the end of 2030. So that's a little over 5 years from now. They're predicting that we will see a third, or almost a third, of the entire global financial system tokenized. And I would add, they're not counting on a major financial calamity, a financial crisis, where the world's governments push this en masse. So we're seeing widespread adoption by these large financial institutions like JP Morgan, Bank of America, BlackRock, Citigroup, Franklin Templeton, on and on. What happens when we get the Federal Reserve Bank and the European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan and the Bank of England and all of these other governments and central banks all around the world pushing this because there is a financial crisis and they need to pick up the pieces of the broken financial system and implement a new one that gives them tyrannical power. So I would guess that we may be well on our way, maybe even by 2030, it'll be close to 100%, not a third. But they're saying, well, just a third by itself. So let's go back to this article on the Substack. I'll link to this at the top of the comments. But it says tokenized assets will give the government programmable control and insight into half of all transactions in the economy. The remaining half that central bank digital currencies do not already encompass. So think about that. Every financial transaction that you deal with in terms of dollars, euros, yen, whatever currency it is you're using in your home country, well, only half of that transaction is the currency. So by simply rolling out central bank digital currencies, we tend to focus on those because that's the big deal. That's common to all of these transactions. But that's only half of the transaction. The other half is the good or service that currency is being traded for. Well, tokenized assets take a big portion of those other half of the transaction, and they digitize those as well. And they give programmable power and insight into those transactions by the government as well. This goes on. It says programmable smart contracts embedded in tokenized assets will set the rules and requirements for the buying and selling of these digital tokens. What happens when the government embeds rules that forbid certain people from buying or selling certain types of tokenized assets or any tokenized assets at all? In such a case, the government will have power over every buy-sell transaction, a power clearly called out almost 2,000 years ago in the book of Revelation. Guys, that's where this is going. They're pushing the system. Again, it's indistinguishable in both capability and function from the mark of the beast system we read about, Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 17. And guys, they push these assets. And again, in many cases, we're talking about legal contracts that are embedded on the blockchain. But the legal rules, laws, and regulations change from country to country, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And so how do you control these programmable contracts across national borders? Well, whoever is the leader in this sector will have a huge advantage in determining what the law is and who can buy or sell certain assets. So guys, we're going to see these as they roll out. They almost have to become global in nature in terms of legal structure. So this helps set the stage for globalism as well and a global legal structure. But this definitely is setting the stage for the mark of the beast system. And so as Christians, we should be paying extra careful attention to that. What message should we take away from that? Well, the message we should take away is we should be sharing the gospel with a lost and dying world. All of the things we see happening around us, they are opportunities to share the gospel with someone else. We can point to these things and then point out that the Bible foretold all of this long, long ago. And then we can point out the Bible also foretold the birth, the life, the death, and the resurrection of a Messiah. And all those prophecies were fulfilled in the life of one man and one man only, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is the Savior. Guys, we should be sharing that message with as many people as possible. So make sure you're filled with a sense of urgency to do exactly that. So let me know what you think. Leave your comments below, and God willing, I will see you on Friday.